is pretty much barren earth, nothing but that red dirt, and that red dirt can only hold so much. That's why that those erosion and flood control measures are so important. It's 7:37. Let's just keep it going here in the KUAM News Zoom room, where we have from Reverend Tax, the director Dafne Shimizu. No pressure, Daph, but wow, I mean, when the governor and obviously Revenue Tax is the agency that would handle the RISE Act implementation, but they kind of heaped it all on your plate, and I know that it's definitely been challenging. But if we could just start there, Dav, I know that you had come on this show, I want to say a couple weeks ago, and had set for yourself and your department an end of the month deadline to get the RISE application up and running, but we're not going to meet that, are we?
So, of course, we were really hopeful that we would have the RISE Act applications available. Unfortunately, we don't have it available at this time, and it's been quite challenging. And I mentioned to you, Chris, that we did have some concerns, items that we had to, some obstacles, I suppose, with the language of the law and rules and regs that we had to overcome. Last week, we did have a brief call with the AG's office with regards to the RISE Act and the implementation of the All RISE EO. Yesterday, we met with the AG's office for like 2 hours, again, just because there were some issues with the language. Of course, we also had questions about eligibility, and we want to make sure that before we issue final guidance that those are it's very clear. And outside of I think the number one question that we asked, and I think I asked multiple times of the OAG, is, does the director of the Department of Revenue and Taxation have the ability and is given the authority legally to make adjustments to what's required in the law in terms of the documents? And the answer was no. And of course, we understand the issue of mayor's verification and other items which we're going to be requiring may be a little bit difficult to obtain. But again, that's why we wanted to seek clarification on that. There were also questions regarding the issue of dependents and whether or not dependents qualify. And if dependents do qualify, then are there additional eligibility requirements for those dependents? And so, I believe that as of yesterday and after our meeting, we were able to identify answers or get answers for those questions. Likely today and through the weekend, we'll be working on the final guidance. So we'll at least have guidance for our people in terms of what is going to be required once the applications open. I don't, I was hoping, and even last week, I was hoping that maybe we may have the application, if not this week, then by first week of August. But at this point, it's difficult to say because without having final guidelines or rules for the implementation, it's difficult for our systems people to finalize how the programs are going to work. So all of that really needs to get done. And again, I'm hopeful that we've been able to overcome a lot of the questions that we had about eligibility because of our meeting with the AG's office yesterday. And we're going to be working on that final guidance.
Can you just kind of go down what are the challenges?
Sure. Of course, number one was the issue of, the mayor's verifications. And I know even when we did meet with Mayor Suarez and the other mayors a few weeks ago, and I thank them for their time a few weeks ago to meet with me. Mayor Suarez had mentioned, I think day one, there was about over 600 people that went to her office to try to get a mayor's verification. I think the next day it was like 700. So again, one of the main questions, and as I look, and I'm not a lawyer, but there was some language that I had asked the AG's office if it was possible for me to utilize to give me the leverage to be able to, or the latitude to, or discretion to be able to adjust the requirement for mayor's verification. Of course, that's not possible based on our discussion. There's also a requirement for those people who were employed to provide a certification of employment. We wanted to make sure that as we interpret the term certification of employment, that we also have some level of discretion in terms of what that is or what that means. And because, of course, if we require just a verification of employment, that may cause some issues with our employers, may cause some issues with people trying to go back if they're no longer employed with those places to be able to go back and get those information. And for government employees, that would mean, of course, having to go to the Department of Administration. And that would also be challenging, for large employers like the Department of Administration or the government, or again, other large employers out there who are already working to address the issues of COVID and other issues that they may be having at this time. So it's, again, those types of issues. There was even some questioning. Like I said, I think the largest issue was the issue of dependents, making sure that with regards to dependents, and there are going to be dependents who are going to be eligible, but again, we're going to lay out the requirements for those dependents and what's going to allow for them to be eligible. And I don't have the final information. I don't want to give wrong information. So we're working, again, like I said, through today and likely through the weekend to make sure we have that, so we can have at least the final guidelines. And I know I can appreciate the challenges and the kind of the stress that a lot of our people are going through as they work to try to make sure that they're prepared for this. In addition to this, Acting Governor Tenorio did issue a letter Sunday night regarding the mayor's verification and receiving the mayor's verifications or some type of form of verification from the mayors regarding residency, on the back end and not at the front end as we're accepting applications. One of the questions that we've gotten or that we've received is, well, how would you treat then an application that's received in its entirety, complete with a mayor's verification, as opposed to, someone who didn't have a mayor's verification and then we ended up getting verification then from the mayors on the back end. So, that's a little bit of a difficult, with regards, and I don't have the answer to that, Sabrina and Chris, because with regards to the way that we administer, our programs, and as you're familiar, even with our Forms 1040, right? If you don't submit a proper document or attachment, and you'll receive a letter from us that advises that your application is not complete. So, we're still internally, again, our issue first has been the issue of eligibility, right, and making sure that we have all of the eligibility down and clear. And then now the issue of the mayor's verification. I did reach out to Mayor Bob Luzama. As you may be aware, he is the governor's office liaison with the mayors. I've asked him if he can assist me in scheduling a meeting with President of Mayor's Council, Mayor Alec, and also with likely Executive Director Angel Sablan. So we can make sure that the verification that we are received from the mayors, is that it's consistent with, it's got information that we need. I mentioned to somebody that my mom, my sister, and even one of our daughters, I know of people who have names just like, my mom, my sister, and my daughter. So, the issue of making sure that as we get the information from the mayors that it has certain additional identifying information outside of a name, that's going to be important. So those are all of the items that we're going to need to discuss with the mayors as we, again, work through this. Another item that I wanted to also address, and
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Chris.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. So you're talking about the eligibility is something that you're discussing with the Office of the AG. But I remember the AG, he had come out with an opinion about the RISE Act law, and he said that it was good to go and it was legit. So is it the new classes of people that the governor added to the All RISE Act via executive order? Is that where we're doing all of our eligibility homework? Because she had added the GovCon employees, retirees, and the federal workers. Whereas the AG's opinion on the... go ahead.
Sure. The issue of eligibility, as you look at the law, and there's and the rules and regs, I believe it's on page 8, and it's, I like item 1A3 or something like that. There is talk of, individuals who did not file a return because they didn't meet the income thresholds. And so there was a question, and there isn't language that specifically addresses the issue of dependents or dependents not being eligible for this program. So one of the concerns that we did have was, and if this was actually posed to me as well by one of the news agencies, is does this then mean that even children dependents, minor dependents qualify as well for for this program. And, we wanted to make sure as we kind of looked through the law that it was very clear, that and just to share with regards to dependents, so first of all, eligibility is for Guam taxpayers, so you must be a Guam taxpayer. And so if you are a dependent, because dependents are not specifically excluded, dependents will have to meet all other eligibility requirements of the program as well. So, you can be a dependent and qualify, but you'll have to meet those eligibility requirements. And that's one of the larger questions that we had, because of course, if dependents of any age, including, for example, a 10-year-old minor could potentially apply, we needed to make sure that we understood that and that we flagged that so that if that was not the intention of the law, it perhaps could be addressed. But that was probably one of the larger items that we needed to make sure we addressed. But again, I did even this week, again, because the mayor's verification has been a question, although, internally, as we looked at the language, we identified or determined that the language does not authorize me as the director to make adjustments to the requirements of the law, that that particular item was addressed as well. And I know that the AG's office will tell you, I asked it multiple times, are you really sure that I cannot change or reduce the amount of documents that's required, in particular the mayor's verification, which I know has been pretty problematic. Mm-hmm. So again, those were probably the larger issues. Again, just making sure that we understand dependent issue, and then the issue of the requirement of the mayor's verification, and also Bree and Chris, the issue of what constitutes a certification of employment. Does it then mean a VOE? Can we be flexible on that? Because, as you can imagine, given the issues that we're seeing with the mayor's verification, to require just a verification of employment and be strict about that would also be, potentially problematic for our employers and for employees or our people who are working to apply for the program.
So are you kind of just recommending for residents to just go ahead and get that mayor's verification?
So with regards to the mayor's verification,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sorry, Bree, I need to perhaps turn up my volume because I'm not hearing exactly. There you go.
Would you recommend that residents just go ahead and get that mayor's verification?
You know what, at this time, because I still have to meet with Mayor Ellig, and of course, because we want to try to assist the mayors with this issue, I would say hold. And you know what, Mayor Ellig, I'm hoping we're going to be able to meet with him soon, and also with Executive Director Angel Sablon, and to work with my team to streamline the process. I think if there's anything that we've realized over this last year is really that, again, we've done things that we've never done before here. I believe that we've been, somewhat successful as we work to implement things. So, I believe that we can work to overcome this, and we can work with the Mayor's Council on this. I will share with you, we've been receiving overwhelming support as well from some of our other agency heads. For example, Director Phyllis Leanguero from DICID, and also, Melvin Lompat Borja, who is now heading not only the decolonization agency, but also the Guam Library. And so we're working, the hope is that we're going to be able to work together so that with regards to the processing of these or receipt of these information on the back end, that we'll be able to somehow get that to be streamlined and as efficient as possible. I also, if you don't mind, I want to mention as well, there is still the question as to the ARP Act guidelines. And I don't, as I understand it, I don't believe that we have received the final ARP Act guidelines. I believe that as Governor Leon Guerrero and some members of the fiscal team have been, traveling to DC, that they've worked to try to meet with some of the government officials to get further clarification. My understanding, though, is I don't believe that we've received that final clarification on the guidelines for ARP Act, the use of the funds. So that's something as well that I just wanted to make sure I flag and share with you.
I'm just surprised you don't have whiplash, Daphne. It just seems like you had the rise, then it became the all rise through an executive order, and then it became, hey, just waive those mayoral verifications through a press release, and I just, you know, you all right over there?
You know, as you know, Bree, I mean, usually, and so I know Chris did ask me to meet earlier in the week, and it's taken a bit of time for me this week. I asked him if he could just delay the interview so that we could have some time, from Monday through today to get better information. I don't have all the final information, but I will tell you, at least with regards to eligibility, I feel pretty confident now that we've met with the AG's office, and now it's going to be meeting with the mayors to figure out how we're going to work to address the issue of the mayor's verification. I do understand, of course, it's been a big issue. I'll tell you, when I did meet with the mayors, I think I asked Executive Director Sablon to meet with the mayors on a Tuesday. And by that Wednesday, the next day at 10 in the morning, I had 19 of the mayor's offices, at least represented, if not by the mayors themselves, then by their team members from their offices there. So I was very overwhelmed with just kind of how many people were in this meeting that I had attended. But I think that it just, really is an illustration of how important an issue, how concerning it is to the mayors. And so I can appreciate the concern that the mayors have. I will share, the mayors have been so hugely supportive of us. We want to do our best to be supportive of them as well. Mm-hmm. But the issue of receiving the mayor's information or the verification of a person's residency on the back end, it is a bit challenging. Again, we're still working through trying to figure out how the mechanism for it. Mm-hmm. But I believe we'll be successful at doing so. And of course, as you know, we don't give up. We just continue to drive forward, and we're going to continue to do that with this as well.
Right, you're just caught in the middle of all this. I don't even know what it is anymore. So now that herd immunity has been achieved, we're still in PCOR 3, but all the restrictions basically are lifted with exception of the mask mandate. So what's the status of DRT? Are you guys 100% open today?
Well, you know what? We've actually always I believe we've always kind of been 100% open, but we have just, done our best to, I call it triage people as they come into our building. Our team met this past Monday to discuss, the potential of us going into PCOR 4. As you know, though, I think that because of the Delta variant, in the Midwest and other places in the continental United States, even I think the Department of Defense has issued some guidelines, for their facilities. Our team, of course, is working to make sure that we operate based on the guidelines that is set forth. And of course, serving our people has been hugely important. In fact, I want to share with you, we now have, I believe, at least 5 phone lines for our call center, if not 6. So I will share with you, Bree and Chris, those phone lines, because of course, I think we've only had 3, and we had to pull numbers from different places to try to make sure we had that. So we have, I believe, 5 or 6 numbers for our call center. And so I'm excited about that. But again, I don't have a final on our operational, on how we're going to be operating. At this point, we're still continuing to operate as we have. Again, we haven't necessarily limited the number of people, limited our capacity in terms of accepting customers. We've just, tried to keep things as organized as possible by allowing for the lines to, to be limited inside the building and having people line up outside.
So you guys kind of like status quo, kind of like we already have been 100% and just kind of waiting for PCOR 4 to be declared?
At this point, that's what we're doing, and you'll see there are likely people outside, just similar to what we've seen. Mm-hmm. And I think that with regards to the issue of I guess how we operate in terms of public health guidelines, perhaps I'm a little bit cautious. My sister says I stop at a yellow light, right? So we want to make sure that we work to that we work carefully as we work to open up. Even though perhaps we may move into PCOR 4 and still, again, we're not limiting the number of people that we're serving. We may continue to operate as we are at this point until we can kind of finally open. As you know, it's been a little bit, perhaps a little bit intimidating because As you know, as we've kind of progressed through this, our agency has had a huge number of people that have wanted our services. And so it's been challenging for us. As you know, last year we had people who when we opened up on Saturdays for driver's license, we had lines and lines of people, like the whole parking lot was full. And even across the street at Our Lady of Peace, we had issues there. And I know even as we moved into this year, we had, cars lined up all the way up to Vinny's and up through the SNU here in Barragata Heights. So, we're always concerned about, the safety of not just our employees, but the safety of our customers. And so we're a little bit perhaps cautious as we kind of open up. So likely, it will be a gradual open, but our team is still working to finalize the operational plan for that.
Daph, just to go back to the all rise. I don't know if you had. I know that you initially said you wanted the application to be at least online by the end of the month. I know we missed that mark, but do you have a new anticipated timeline as to when applications may be ready? I'm sorry because everyone's asking.
No, and it's a fair question, and I want to be clear. I was hopeful it would be by month's end. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Even last week, I was hoping perhaps maybe in the first week of August. At this time, again, because yesterday we just finally were able to get final clarification on eligibility. Now I can go ahead and work to, put that in black and white, provide it to our programmers. And then, there's some level of procurement that's involved as well with this because there is programming involved. So that also has to happen. So it's a little bit challenging to say, but what I can say, Chris, is that, we're going to do our best to get it out as soon as we possibly can. And, of course, given the amount of items that we need to check off, again, it's now where we are is going to be communicating final eligibility to the programmers so that they can program it into the system and making sure that if there's any procurement that's involved, because there may be, some payments to our vendors that have to be made so that we can have the system updated, then those need to be as well done, just so we make sure we follow all proper laws.
But if the governor were to just scrap and ignore the RISE Act and come up with a new type of direct assistance program, it sounds like it'd be much easier to just go with that. Seems like there's some problems.
Well, I think honestly, this has probably been one of the more challenging programs for us to address. And the federal programs, actually, just to kind of go back to it, the federal programs, it took quite a while, like maybe a month or something. We saw Congress obviously work on the federal programs, and then from the point that the CARES Act or the ARP Act were finalized or authorized by law or became law, then it took maybe about a month for us still to work with the IRS and Treasury to get our implementation plans done. What we noticed, of course, and again, it's a little bit challenging, we kind of ran into a similar situation to this with Azuda Imengafa, if you recall. Azuda Imengafa was first, authorized by law, I can't remember, around summertime in 2020. But again, what ended up having to happen was because of some of the language issues, there had to be, I believe it was emergency session that was gone into so that way the legislature could make some changes so that we can implement that particular mandate without too many issues. And so that's what happened with the Azuda Imengafa. And and with regards to the RISE Act itself, if you notice, if you look at and you pull the law, you'll see that it was actually introduced, I think, in March or April 2020, and it kind of went through this. First it was introduced, and I guess it was introduced around the time the CARES Act had passed. So, the legislature had the desire to have a local program as well. And when the federal money started coming in, then we didn't hear a lot of discussion about the RISE Act. And we didn't hear too much about it until maybe coming around the end of the year, maybe like November. And so, at that point in November, I think even when there was the initial discussion of the RISE Act, there wasn't any discussion about exclusion of government employees or government retirees. That kind of happened around the end of November when I guess there was an issue or, there was perhaps a news article that had come out about the issue of government employees, and the issue of government employees working. And so, there was that like an article that had come out at the end of November, and so because again, from the beginning, there was no exclusion of any particular group of people, and again, that didn't happen until late in the year. And then, of course, I think the RISE Act public hearing was like first week of December, like around December 7, you know, and it wasn't clear again, you know.
Are you there?
7th of December to the legislature regarding the language of the RISE Act. And, you know, again, I think one of the items we did bring up was the issue of dependence and dependent eligibility, which has been a big issue for us at this time. So, you know, the RISE Act itself, I think we had seen many, it had gone through that whole last year, and it was, again, started out being something different, and ended up, of course, progressing through this process and ending up, you know, being what it is currently.
Right.
And I think because of it kind of going through that process, there was some language that maybe wasn't identified as being potentially problematic or challenging to implement. So,
well, Daph, we've got to go. It's at the top
I'm so
of the
sorry.
hour. No, it's okay.
Fine, yeah.
We'll let you go ahead and take care of that whiplash. We really appreciate you for coming on.
Don't mind
thank
her,
you so
Daph.
much,
Don't
Ray.
mind
Thank
her.
you, Chris. Thank you for humoring me. Thank you for taking the time and for being patient. And I want to thank all of our people. I will share with you later, if you don't mind, our call center numbers so that you can share that with your viewers. And so again, thank you so much and have a great day.
Take care, Daph.
Okay, Daphne, thank you so much. Hey, it's 8:03. Look at that. KUAM TV, here we come.